Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. I've been thinking about Bitcoin lately. I've been thinking about money lately. And I think there's some things with cryptocurrency that some people are overlooking. I was watching a video by this fellow which was very ecstatic about the price of Bitcoin and how him and all his buddies are going to become Bitcoin millionaires and billionaires. But there's a problem with this, okay? There's a very big problem with this. And I think that Bitcoin could potentially, if left unchecked by the governments of the world, it could become one of the greatest wealth transfers in human history. I know everybody uses that phrase. It's so overused nowadays. The
greatest wealth transfer in human history.
Behind some, dramatic music in the background. But there's something that everybody misses with Bitcoin. I understand the idealism, for the most part, of blockchain technology and even cryptocurrency to an extent, but there's a problem. The problem with Bitcoin is this. There's a bunch of computer geeks, okay, who at the start bought a bunch of Bitcoin for pennies on the dollar, basically. And now they are millionaires. Where did that money come from? Because there was nothing of value created. It's not like they invested in a stock and that money was put into research and development by a team of scientists who developed something new, or they developed a new way of manufacturing something, or that investment was not tangibly put towards the creation of something. Nothing new was created. All of that money, all of that value, all of that wealth, it came from the blood, sweat, and tears of people who've worked their ass off. And they have all their investments in the US dollar. If the US dollar crashes, think about this, stay with me now. If the US dollar collapses and Bitcoin, by some stroke of luck, becomes the new global currency and the price of one Bitcoin goes up to $1 million, and all of a sudden, all of those people who are holding US dollars are now broke, and this crypto nerd over here is sitting on billions of dollars, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that people are going to stand for that? You are going to get one of the biggest socio-economic upheavals in all of human history if something like that were to ever transpire. That money doesn't come from anywhere, okay? I mean, it comes from, like I said, the work, the labor, the production of commodities, services that were done by people who've up until now been trading in the global reserve currency that is US dollars. So the idea that Bitcoin is just going to become the currency and everybody's going to get rich and people are treating it like an investment, and even the idealists who just got into Bitcoin because they wanted a decentralized currency, which makes perfect sense. Hey, nobody wants the banks to have control over the currency and have the ability to depreciate the currency and devalue it and print money and the whole fractional reserve banking nonsense. Bitcoin makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense to have this finite amount of credits. So it's infinitely divisible, but there's still a finite amount. There's only ever going to be 20 million Bitcoins mined. So there's a finite pool of money. You can't just print more. You can't just lend more. And on the basis of that, lend and lend and lend. So it's protected in that respect. One of the downsides is that everything you do, everything you transact in, is going to be available for everybody to see. Now, every transaction you make is going to be trackable, unlike cash, which is not. Cash is the exact opposite. In fact, gold is probably the greatest opposite, because gold can be melted into any possible form. Precious metals, they don't need to be an official note, an official bank note, which was issued by a bank, which runs the risk of being counterfeited. Gold is gold, and it can take on many different forms. And I'm not a gold bug, okay? I'm just talking about this aspect of cryptocurrency and the massive wealth discrepancy that would result if Bitcoin was adopted as the new reserve currency right now. Now, there has been a push by some investment firms and some corporations to integrate Bitcoin into their platforms. Now, whether that's just so that they can charge fees to sell people Bitcoin, or whether or not they actually believe that Bitcoin is the future, is another story. When we look at it in the way that I'm telling you right now, that nobody's thinking about, everybody just thinks, oh, we're all going to be rich. At the expense of who? There's a finite amount of wealth in the world, and that wealth was created by labor and people, okay? If you just transfer that wealth to this other guy, all those people are going to be broke, and they're going to have pitchforks, and I can guarantee you they're going to be storming your lawn in the middle of the night to come and get their money back. That's what's going to happen. So if there is a Bitcoin revolution, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's not going to go down like a lot of people think it's going to go down. Because what was supposed to be the thing that economically liberates humankind and takes us to the next level, what is supposed to be something which is going to help us transcend this faulty economic paradigm that we're living in, will at first, before it reaches its maturation, it will lead to one of the most unequal societies we have ever seen before. So, this is why I suspect that it's probably not going to happen. And I've long since suspected that if you do start to see that price of Bitcoin skyrocketing, and you do start to see a lot of the billionaire class proportionally move their wealth over to Bitcoin, that's when you know the gig is up. That's when you know the US dollar, the ship is sinking, which it's bound to, it's destined to, sorry to say, but in the not so distant future, the US will not be the global reserve currency. And when that happens, we are going to see a collapse of epic proportions. And if and when Bitcoin moves in and becomes the primary trading medium of the planet, that's when we're going to see massive social upheaval as a result of the newfound inequity which Bitcoin, which is supposed to liberate mankind, brought upon us. Now, this is why I suspect that they're probably going to introduce another cryptocurrency to resolve this problem, because it is going to be a problem. The government knows this. They must know this. I mean, I'm not that smart, okay? I can humbly say that. You can make jokes about it in the comment section. That's fine. They must know this. They must know that if Bitcoin became the de facto currency, that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to get rich at the expense of a lot of other people who work their asses off for their pensions and their 401ks and all that stuff. And they're not going to stand for that. They're not going to stand for that kind of transfer of wealth. And probably the government isn't either. Neither are all the dinosaurs who've been the top dogs for the longest time. This is why I have a hard time coming to terms with the notion of Bitcoin being the global currency of the future. I do believe that cryptocurrency, hopefully in a blockchain form, in a decentralized form, will be the currency of the future. It's only a matter of time when we are so integrated with the digital world of things that it's just going to be a second nature, and it's going to be so ubiquitous that physical cash, the only thing that's going to replace physical cash would be non-renewable commodities, or I should say renewable commodities, things that we need in order to survive. Fuels, batteries, food, things of that nature. Okay, that's going to become the new currency. I've made countless videos where I've talked about how those types of commodities that are non-perishable, that require energy to produce, they don't depreciate. Things that you need in order to survive will never depreciate, okay? They'll only appreciate as we move into the future, which is one of increasing scarcity in many ways. In some ways, there's more abundance, but with this whole climate situation as it is, and I know some people don't seem to think it's a problem, we live on a finite planet, and as such, scarcity with a growing population, which is supposed to level off around 10 billion, we'll see, I guess, but a population with increasing insatiable needs and interests, and as such, these type of commodities that we require to survive. I'm not talking about TV sets and technology which can be obsolete within a year. I'm talking about the things that you need as a human being, food and water. Anything that you need that serves your vital functions is always going to appreciate in value. So if you want to hold something, don't fret if cash goes away, because remember, cash is just the medium of exchange. There are plenty of other ways to barter. I'm starting to be very critical and skeptical of Bitcoin. There was a time when I was starting to think that the idea may actually be happening because these corporations were adopting it. But now I'm starting to think that they're only doing that maybe just to make money off people who want to trade it. And that at some point, the governments are going to ban it because they know that it's going to lead to this massive unequal wealth transfer. I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off. I know there's a lot of people holding Bitcoin right now. And look, I don't really want to congratulate you. Okay, it's not like congratulating people who invested in a stock early and that stock grew as a result of the work that people did and that money that they took the risk to invest. Okay, Bitcoin is not an investment. You don't invest in a currency. Yes, there's Forex trading, which is moving money to different currencies to try to make a little money on the exchange rate. That's really all you're doing. You're a Forex trader. In my personal opinion, Forex trading, at least to the best of my knowledge, doesn't produce anything for humanity. Okay, all you've done is you've promoted cryptocurrency, which has value, but not the kind of value to make you the richest person in the world. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And most of you guys who are, understand the economics of crypto and blockchain, you should be smart enough to understand what I'm saying right now. And even if you don't agree with it, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a revolution. And I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to be a part of it. Hopefully, I'm squared away in other ways. In fact, I would probably say the best hedge against a lot of this stuff coming right now is, number one, have some sort of sustainable means of having a renewable energy source, solar panels, having a garden, having a way to sustain life. I don't want to say indefinitely, because nothing is indefinite, but having a way to regenerate energy. That's going to be one of your primary assets. And of course, land, real estate, those are all going to be good things, even though real estate you have to pay taxes on, and ultimately it escapes you if you don't maintain it. But even just having shares in a company, honestly, the stock market right now, as I've speculated all along, is in an inflation mode. All the inflation of that stimulus money is in the bubble of a stock market. The valuation of the companies hasn't really got up. It's just ahead of the curve of what's coming. And what's coming is massive inflation. And so when the American dollar really starts to become devalued and everybody ditches it, that doesn't mean that Facebook is going to be worthless. That doesn't mean that Microsoft and Tesla are just suddenly going to be worthless companies. No, there's still value. They're just going to be measured in a different way. So what I'm saying is, if $1 someday becomes $1 million, then all of those stocks are just going to multiply to the equivalent value. So having shares in different companies, and you could even go global, you could diversify, your money around the world in different stocks. I mean, you definitely want to diversify into precious metals. In our lifetime, gold will always be relevant. Gold and silver will always be relevant, I think, in our lifetime. And I mean, anyone who's over 20 years old, okay? It's going to take a while for us to totally get out of precious metals. They're going to have to kick the shit hit the fan can down the road for a long time, and I don't think we can do it that much longer. I think this whole cyberpunk craze it's all part of the, our collective willing ourselves to that reality. That's the future, basically. The future is cyberpunk, it's Elysium, it's a Demolition Man, it's the Hunger Games, it's Snowpiercer. It's all those movies wrapped in one. Okay, we've collectively kind of made a decision that that's the way things are gonna go. Unfortunately, it's just how it is. And it's not that we've just made that decision, it's just that our behaviors haven't changed. We're not doing anything profoundly different than we haven't done for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, we're virtue signaling a lot more. That's something we're doing really well. And we got a lot of makeup, and we can really make things look nice that really aren't nice when you get down to the core of them. But besides that phony beautification of the things that we do, we haven't fundamentally changed as human beings at all. And you cannot expect us to, because genetically, you could have taken a human being, a Homo sapiens sapiens, from 70,000 years ago, raised them as a baby, and they would be able to function in our society today. That's how similar. I mean, they might not be the sharpest knives in the drawer, but they could work a job in society, they could speak English, they could do these things. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the idea that in the span of a couple hundred years, human nature has fundamentally changed is stupid. Let me know what you think in the comments section, guys. Stay prepped, stay ready. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.